I am in Zambia, and I'm heading to the South Luangwa National Park for 5 days to show you what it's like, the game viewing, how wild it is, what the camps are like, and ultimately how it compares to other destinations. Most people heading to South Luangwa will fly into the small town of Mfui. There are scheduled flights from Lusaka or other parks in Zambia, and then it's 30 minutes to the nearest camps. My first night is at Kafunta River Lodge, and I'm up early for breakfast before heading out on game drive. It isn't long before we come across a small herd of elephants, and then we're at the Luangwa River, which we cross in a novel way on a pont. This gives the camp direct access to a prime section of the park, away from the main gate and the traffic there. Something that is important for me is diverse landscapes and habitats, and I'm getting a little taste of it this morning, with good plains game, and before long our guide hears about a lion sighting. The lions had abandoned their kill to hyenas, and the vultures and marabou storks were waiting for their turn at the carcass. Coffee breaks are a traditional part of the morning game drive, and this one was with homemade biscuits. I now have time to look around Kafunta. They have an amazing open-air lounge and deck, and while it is set on the Luangwa River, only the floodplain is visible from the camp, but they have a marshy area which attracts a lot of life. They also have a ground-level viewing hide, so if something does come to the water, you can head down there and get a better perspective. The 8 rooms are well spread out on either side of the main area. Each is spacious and more than comfortable with cooling fans and a deck facing onto the floodplain. I would describe the rooms as traditional, and I like them. Kafunta has 2 more camps in the South Luangwa, and I'm spending my second night at their 3 Rivers camp, 2 hours south of their main lodge. The staff at the camp and people in Zambia are very friendly, and I feel welcome everywhere I go. 3 Rivers is a smaller camp, very simple, and set up on the bank of the Luangwa River, where there is always a pod of hippos and crocodiles viewable. The rooms, I think, are wonderful. They are open air designed with a deck and ensuite bathrooms. There are only 5 rooms here, 2 on the river and 3 set back overlooking the marsh. But what is really special about each of them is a sleep out deck. Here you can spend your days and of course sleep at night, under mosquito nets, but open to the stars and all the sounds of the night. The camp has a small natural waterhole with frequent visitors day and night, and after tea, this is how our game drive starts. One of the key aspects that Zambia and its safari lodges take pride in is the quality of their guides and guiding skills. Andrew looked after me at both Kafunta and 3 Rivers and was very informative, well spoken and likable. Huku are one of the antelope species found here, and not common further south in Africa, or in many places. These wonderful scenes with multiple species present are common in the Luangwa, as are elephant. Giraffe are common here too, and the species that are found here are endemic to the South Luangwa. It is called the Thornycroft's giraffe, and while it looks like most other giraffe, it is an offshoot of the Maasai giraffe. We did not cover a lot of ground, yet we saw plenty, and now it is time for a drink at the Luangwa River, while the sun dips into the horizon and before we start our night drive, another activity of the South Luangwa, which it is famous for. There always seems to be something worth viewing, from nightjars and hyenas, and then a leopard. It has been a marvelous day in the South Luangwa, and I spend the night sleeping under the stars on the sleep-out deck. The next morning we are back around the fire for breakfast before we head out again. We follow up on the leopard from last night and where it had a kill stashed in a tree, but no evidence can be found, so we carry on. Our mission this morning is a safari walk, so we drive to a suitable area with our lodge guide as well as a park scout who must accompany all walks. Guided safari walks are a key component of South Luangwa safaris, and it should be. The terrain here is flat and fairly open, so you feel safe, and with high caliber guides it is a fantastic way to see, hear and smell the environment. My time at Three Rivers has come to an end. My brief stay was excellent. The food and hospitality at both camps was just wonderful. I now head back north to the center of the park and to a camp just outside the main gate of the park called Flatdogs. Flatdogs is an entry-level camp in the South Luangwa that punches well above its weight. It feels a bit resort-like, but very good value and renowned for its food. I have to rush through things a bit here. My game drive friends are ready, and I'm joining Kennedy, another soft-spoken and superb guide. From Flatdogs, you do have to enter the park through the main gate, along with vehicles from other camps outside the park. All park fees are paid upfront, so there is no hassle at the gate, just a quick check-in, and off we go, over the bridge into the park. Once inside, the landscapes are instantly appealing, and the variety of habitats are ever-changing. I like this. South Luangwa has excellent birding opportunities. One of their specialties is the southern carmine bee-eaters that gather here to nest in the banks of the Luangwa River. Their colors, flocking activity and buzz of sounds is amazing. It is really special. The river with the bee-eaters is the perfect place to stop for a sundowner before we start our night drive back towards camp. A genet cat, a chameleon, a hyena and a hippo are all spotted before we get back and enjoy dinner. The following morning we enjoy breakfast in the restaurant before we begin a long game drive north to where I will be met and head on to the next camp. After crossing the bridge into the park, vehicles all take different routes and begin their search. Our first stop is at a wonderful lagoon filled with bird life. These lagoons are spread out in the park. They fill up with flood waters in summer, and then as the water levels drop, they provide these pools, which are preferred by most animals for drinking. Everywhere we go, there are impala, waterbuck, giraffe, warthogs and puku. And then we come across a sizable herd of buffalo, one of the larger mammals in the park, which had just finished drinking at the lagoon. Minutes later, Kennedy spots a leopard up a tree, which gives us a few minutes for photos before melting into the bush. Each time you pass another lodge vehicle, the guides stop to share information. It is the Luangwa internet, and there is little to no radio contact between vehicles, which keeps noise and interference to a minimum. Good news is that some lions have been spotted, and we find our way there. It is pretty hot in Zambia, so not surprisingly the lions aren't up to much, so we head on to find a good spot for a coffee break. Of the famous species found in the Greater Luangwa, the hippo must be one of them, and there are thousands. Further on we find another pride of lions, doing pretty much the same thing, so we continue north. By now it is late in the morning and the lagoons are busy. We are getting close to my drop-off point, and I say farewell to my fellow travellers before I board the boat to get to Tafika Camp. Tafika and its 2 satellite walking camps are run by the Kafunta family, who have been here for 30 years. Owner-run and managed camps are something I really like, and is fairly common in the Luangwa. The camp feels homely and welcome, and meals are enjoyed around a shared table with a family member present. The rooms are again simple, and the grass elements are rebuilt each year for the safari season, so they look fresh and new, a real eco camp, with everything you need and nothing that you don't. Open bathrooms are standard here, and the structure allows maximum airflow. Tea and snacks are served before heading out on game drive. Something peculiar here in the Luangwa is that hippos have learnt to eat the pods of the sausage tree, something they do not do anywhere else. Tafika is located just outside the park, but does its game drives in an area of the park called the Insefu sector. The BBC had been filming predators here for the last few years, so I gather it must be good. I made a request to see some elephants crossing the Luangwa River, so we headed that way to see if we had any luck. I was enjoying some of Zambia's finest local brew when the elephants arrived and made their way down the bank and up to the river. It was a magical scene and a highlight of my trip. Our night drive began from there, and we went in search of a leopard that the BBC had been filming. She had been seen in the morning, and it wasn't long before we found her, on the hunt. We kept the lights off and decided to leave her to business, and headed back with a bush baby on the way. The following morning it was arranged for me to do a safari walk and view their satellite walking camp, which involved paddling across the river to a private area of the park that nobody else can access. The two things that make walking desirable is the terrain where you walk and the guides you are walking with. Amon, our guide, was top-notch and a font of information. I've seen fires started by rubbing sticks together and enjoyed coffee on walks, but I've never had coffee made over a fire like that. It was a first for me, and absolutely wonderful. Coffee tastes amazing outdoors. Back at Tafika, they have a ground level viewing hide next to a waterhole. It is a popular spot, and when I saw some elephants in the area, I popped down there to see them. It is a wonderful way to spend time in camp and to be up close with such huge animals only a few yards away. The show didn't end there. The elephants love coming into camp to feed on seed pods dropped outside the rooms. You really have to be careful walking around the camp. This afternoon the team had another surprise in store for me, and something unique in the Luangwa Valley, and that was a bike ride with the legendary John Coppinger. Tapping into his knowledge gained through living in the wild and guiding over the last few decades was a treat. It was a short ride into the village to see what life is like and to witness some of the work the lodge does with the community and the school. Many of the camp staff come from Mkasanga village, and despite it being relatively prosperous, the reality of life in an African village is evident. Even with so little, people are happy and pleased to see us. Back into the park, the river seemed peaceful, and we had a sundowner while hippos watched us. I realized it was my final night, just when I was beginning to feel at home here. Another leopard showed us the way home. I was going to miss these views, scenes that have been around for centuries, and it did feel like a family goodbye. One of the things that I really wanted you to see is how wild the Luangwa is. In the central areas of the park you do encounter other vehicles, but it never felt crowded. In the outlying areas you can drive for hours and not see anybody, or any sign of man, so you really do get a sense of wilderness, and that is something we want our clients to experience. I think the game viewing here is pretty good, considering there is no off-road driving, which you can do in other parks and reserves. I like that you see a lot of plains game, almost all the time, and I love the scenery along the Luangwa River. The highlights like the bee-eaters, hippos, leopards and elephants all add up to an amazing experience. It feels like a blend of the Kruger National Park and the Okavango Delta. The camps where I stayed were all fabulous, from Kafunta and Three Rivers to Flatdogs and Tafika. The food, the hospitality and friendliness is something that makes you want to come back. They're also relatively good value compared to other destinations. You will find on our website that we have numerous safaris combining the South Luangwa with the Lower Zambezi, and they really are a great combination and make a fabulous, varied experience in so many ways.